my name's Jim Belt. I am the hemp inspection manager. I've been with the department for 27 years. Most previously, though, I was the pesticide and fertilizer inspection manager. And throughout our presentations, I hope you see with any of the department's presentations, look, folks, work with us, we'll work with you. This is a brand new program. I can't stress that enough. If you have questions, pick up the phone, give us a call, drop us an email. You know, we're going to jump right into it here in Ohio. We've got two basic types of licenses we're talking about when we're talking hemp licenses here in Ohio. We've got hemp cultivators licenses and hemp processors licenses. And you know, we've got a lot of folks out there right now that are thinking, hey, I can get the cultivator's license and I can grow my hemp and I can take it to the farmer's market and sell it because I'm just going to sell the floral material, the buds for smokable hemp. Well, you can do that. But you're going to have to either get the processor's license too or contract with the processor to get your material packaged. So as a cultivator, you know, when you're selling to somebody here in Ohio, the only person you can sell that to is a licensed processor unless you get the processing license yourself and do the processing in order to be able to sell it. Okay? One of the big things with processing, you know, Craig, if you were in here for the last presentation, he just, you know, maybe you heard him say the longer you leave that material in the field, the higher the CBD, the higher the THC levels will go up. If you wait to harvest that until 15 days after we pull our sample, that crop might be hot at that point in time, and you would not be able to sell that material as smokable flower because the processors have to send it back out after they've processed it to make sure it's still below that total THC level. Okay? So that's one thing I want to hit right at the beginning with. You know, this is a pretty risky crop to grow here. We don't know what it's going to do in Ohio yet. We've got varieties that aren't proven varieties that are being brought in from out of state. You know, the question was how many different acres were planted in Kentucky last year. They had like 26,000 acres that actually got planted. I think it's somewhere around there. 47% of their crop was hot. 47% of the hemp that was planted had to be destroyed. And they had 30-some new varieties that came in from the West Coast last year because everybody's chasing that high CBD content, and all of those new varieties tested hot last year. So you really have to vet your seed sources or your plant sources and find out how that material is testing, okay? We did just go live this afternoon at noon with our licensing process. It is all online. That is the easiest way to do it. You're going to have to sign in. We call it, I think it's called single source. You sign in, you get an ID through ohio.gov, and then you come back to our website and start the application process. This is both for processors and cultivators. You know, it was brought up, well, who are going to be the cultivators in Ohio? We don't know yet. We don't know yet because they didn't get the application until this afternoon at noon either. We're hoping there'll be processors here. I would highly caution about planting a crop that you don't know where you're going to sell it. To me, that is very risky business. Number one, hopefully you grow a crop that's compliant in the first place, and number two, you need to know when you're growing it where you're going to sell that crop. Okay? But that information is all available online. Do not copy this email notification address because when we went live with this morning, that email notification no longer works. Okay, we will have a new one back up on the website. It's been quite hectic because last Thursday we were told you will start taking applications on Tuesday, and we were hoping she meant like Tuesday, you know, next week. But we did get it up and going today. So bear with us on that. You are mapping your locations out on that website. We'll go into some of the land use restrictions on that here. But it is a pretty detailed mapping program. It's using a Google Earth type platform where you'll draw in the fields that you intend to have as your planting locations. You have to draw in your storage barns, your drying barns, and if you're going to be growing in a greenhouse at any part of the growing season, you have to map that in as well as a growing location. Okay? So, big thing that needs to be done is in order to be a processor or a cultivator, you do need to go in and get a background check through BCI. Our website has all of that information up there on where to find those offices. I've been told it's around $30 this round. I would expect that to go up in the future because it will be a state and federal background check in the future. So you do need to go in and get that background check. That is sort of slowing up our process a little bit right now. We did not get the direct link set up through BCI, so when you go in and get your background check, you need to say reason is other, because they've got a list of agencies that they will send the background checks to, because we need to get it directly sent to us. You can't mail it in to us, because we want to make sure it wasn't modified before we got it, so it's got to come straight from BCI. You select other, say AGR Hemp Program, ORC 928.03 if they ask for that. And then you have to give them our name and address for the Ohio Department of Agriculture. If you email hemp@agri.ohio.gov, we will send you that information. We have sent that email out to those that were previously signed up for the automatic notifications on the listserv, so we will gladly share that information with you. A lot of the questions I seem to be getting right now is, okay, I'm farming, but my kids are working with me in the field. Do they need to go get the background check as well? You know, if you're a sole proprietor farmer, you're the farmer, it's your business, then you're the only one that needs that background check. If you're in a partnership, though, we call it's key participants. If you're a key participant, you're in a partnership, an LLC, or a corporation, then multiple people might have to go get those background checks done there. With universities, it's the primary researcher, I believe, that's going out, because universities are exempt from some of the licensure requirements, but they're going to have to go through this entire thing the same way as any other process or any other cultivator. Okay, the only thing that they don't have to do is pay the fee for the license. All right. Any questions so far? So who needs a cultivation license? And this is one we get asked a lot. Anybody who plants, grows, waters, cultivation. If you're involved in any part of that cultivation process, you need to have that cultivation license. We've got greenhouses that are bringing plants in, that are holding plants over for planting. They will need our cultivation license. You know, if you're the farmer starting it from seed in a greenhouse, you're going to need that cultivation license for that greenhouse. If you've got outdoor growing locations where you're going to transplant or direct seed, you will need that cultivation growing license. You know, it doesn't matter what part of the growing process you're in. You need to have that cultivation license, okay? Cultivation restrictions. I know Dr. Schletthofer, I keep saying it wrong. You know, he went over that briefly in the last presentation. If you're going to grow in an indoor growing location, the growing location has to be at least 1,000 square feet. The big kicker is that no matter which growing location it is, whether it's an indoor growing location or an outdoor growing location, the minimum number of plants that you are required to grow in each growing location is 1,000 plants. Okay? That is one that you really need to look at. We've got people that are talking about doing this in greenhouse production and taking it to flower in greenhouse. You better have a big greenhouse for 1,000 plants, okay? There are some variances that might be available for this. That is going to definitely slow down your application process if you're applying for a variance, though, okay? Outdoor minimum, 1/4 acre and 1,000 plants. Then the restrictions for both indoor and outdoor. If you've got a public park or a school property that's near your location, your plants have to be at least 500 feet from their property line. Likewise, as if you have a residential structure, whether it's your house or your neighbor's house, your plants have to be at least 100 feet from all houses, including your own. Okay, even if that's inside a greenhouse. If you've got a greenhouse that you're wanting to use at your property, the plants have to be 100 feet from your house. Okay. The other one is the 1/2 mile setback from any currently licensed medical marijuana cultivators. So there are some land use restrictions out there on this. Okay. Licensure requirements, it's $100 for the application fee. That $100 is for a 3-year license, and then it's an annual fee of $500 for each growing location. One of the big things here is that any indoor structure in which you grow hemp, you cultivate hemp, is considered a separate growing location. The other thing here, where we've got separate growing locations, because our definition of growing location specifically states contiguous land area. So it's a contiguous planting. If you have a big field and you are only going to plant maybe the northeast corner and the northwest corner of that field, Those are 2 growing locations, unless they're planted close enough that there is no more than a 20-foot gap between the 2 plantings. Okay? The other thing that we get into on that, I think this describes it, any physical barrier within that field would split it up into separate growing locations. So if there's a driveway, permanent driveway that goes through that field, and you're growing on both sides of the driveway, you can't get a contiguous planting there. That's 2 separate growing locations. If you've got fences, that splits it up into 2 separate growing locations. Water barriers. So those are things to take into consideration here when you're trying to figure out where you want to establish your growing location at. One of the things that we've been told is, look, this is not a crop that you want to put on your poor quality ground. This is a crop you want to put on some of your best quality ground. I think you heard earlier that it does not like wet feet at all. It really does not like wet feet. So you've got to, you're not trying to look and stick this somewhere to see if you can make a go out of it. You're trying to find the best place to put this crop at your facility. Okay, give it the best chance possible here. Any questions on this so far?
What's the reason that it has to be in a contiguous area?
So the reason, and he touched on this a little bit in his presentation as well, is because of law enforcement. When they're flying, one of the things is that you're not allowed to grow any amount of hemp without a license through the Ohio Department of Agriculture. So if law enforcement pulls up on a crop out in the field and it's not within our system and they can't find it easily in their mapping system from the information you registered with us, more than likely it's not licensed then, and whether it's hemp or not, if it's being grown without a license, it is marijuana and it will be treated as such. So this is all coming down from law enforcement needing to be able to tell, hey, where are our legal growers and where are our illegal growers? Okay?
One more question.
Sure.
Difference between hemp and marijuana?
Difference between hemp and marijuana is the amount of the THC in the plant. You can't tell the difference.
It could be the same, like you were saying earlier, it could be the same plant and it's hemp up until you said it gets hot, and if it's hot, then all of a sudden it's marijuana.
That is what changes the difference legally, yes. It could be the same plant. When you have a hemp genetic, if you harvested it before it got up to 0.3% THC, it's hemp. If it gets above that 0.3 THC, it is marijuana. They're both from the same species. I mean, they are both the same species of plant. You can't tell the difference looking at them. One thing you can tell, and this is something that our neighbors in Kentucky have said you need to watch out for. If you're growing outdoors, you need to be scouting your fields to see what's going on in your fields. If you're buying a good source and it's all the same variety, you can tell varietal differences when you're walking through the field, if you've got a good source. I've seen some seeds, though, when you're buying your seed, it says it's the same variety, and there's 6 different looking plants that come out of that variety batch of seed. But if you've got a good source, you can tell varietal difference. And because they've had some issues with people pulling hemp plants and planting other plants in with the hemp field. And oftentimes, there might be a little marker in the ground next to that plant that's not yours, so that they know where to go to when they want to come back and harvest that plant that would make your entire crop test hot. Okay, the big difference here is that it's the total amount of THC in it. You can't tell the difference when you're looking at them side by side, which one's hemp, which one's marijuana. There is just physically no way to tell the difference just looking at it. It has to be done through laboratory analysis. Okay, any other questions on that? Indoor growing locations, we talked about that. Again, that definition was any single building. So we've got some greenhouses that have been saying, hey, we've got multiple buildings here. Is this one growing location or is this multiple growing locations? This is actually multiple growing locations because it's a single structure. So if they want to grow in each one of these structures, then it is an individual growing location. Each one of them has to have at least 1,000 square feet in it, and each one of them they have to grow at least 1,000 plants in. Okay? Prohibited variety guidance. So this is one of the things in our rules and regulations. We have the authority to restrict different varieties here in Ohio. We have no information on what varieties are going to do here in Ohio. We had limited research last year at the universities because we didn't get their plants in until, what was it, August? Okay, and it was just a handful of varieties at the different universities that were able to get some research in. So what we are doing is we are making information available, and we highly suggest that you review all of the information from our states that surround us. Indiana has a listing out there, so does Kentucky, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. All of that information should be available now that we went live on our website. If it's not there, send us an email, we'll send it to you. Kentucky and Pennsylvania, they have prohibited certain varieties, and because it consistently tests hot in their states. And if I was growing in Ohio, I would have to assume that if they tested hot in Kentucky and Pennsylvania, there's a good chance they would test hot here in Ohio. We're not that far away, folks. Okay? Indiana and Michigan, they are not prohibiting varieties, but what they have done is they have made all of their test results available so that you can see what the different varieties in those states have tested. So, you really need to research this and make sure you're selecting a variety that doesn't go hot often. Okay, because you're wanting to grow a compliant crop. We want you to grow a compliant crop. I hope we have no hot crops in Ohio. I don't think that's going to be the outcome, though. Okay? Okay. Cultivating reporting requirements. So there are some multiple reports that are going to have to be made here. For the Ohio Department of Agriculture, once you get your license, you get your planning done, you're going to have to jump on the website again and make that planning report with the Ohio Department of Agriculture. One of the other things you're going to have to do, though, because the Farm Bill of 2018, under the federal requirements, it is a mandatory crop reduction with the Farm Service Agency. So you have to report all acreage and plantings to the Farm Service Agency. The Farm Service Agency, hopefully you're used to dealing in agriculture. You know where your office is. If you don't, well, we've got that information on our website as well, so you can locate your county office, but you're going to have to go in there. If you're not currently a farmer, you're going to have to get registered as it's not grower, what do they call it when you go in and register? Producer, okay, or operator. Is it operator that they call it? I think it's operator. Operator. And so you will have to get registered, you're going to have to get your land registered, and you're going to have to file a planning report with the Farm Service Agency as well. This is one of those areas where federal government won't share information with us, so we have to get it so we know where it's at in Ohio, and then the federal government said, we want you to report it to us too, okay? So that is something that, I think it's going to be hard to get people to do, because people who were used to going in and just reporting to participate in the Farm Service Agency, they've got that down already. They're used to doing that, but this is a different crop. It's growing under a license through the Department of Ag, so you're going to have to do a dual reporting here with us and the Farm Service Agency. Okay?
Is there a form you can fill out that you can just have them send it to you?
Is there a form that you can fill out, just have them send it to you? We've been told with the Farm Service Agency, you have to go into the office. They are working at making that available online, but this year that's not going to be an option.
Have FSA send it to ODA?
No. No. So the question was, will FSA share the information you report to them with ODA? Absolutely not. That is within their guidelines. It's not public information. When you're an operator that reports to FSA, they are not allowed to share it with a state agency, period.
I mean,
yeah. And we're requiring you to do it through the web portal so that it's put in with your information that's already in the system when you're reporting to ODA. Good questions. Good questions. Okay. One of the things that is also required here is a pre-harvest testing. If you're growing that CBD material, you need to do pre-harvest testing more than likely prior to calling us out there, so that you know when you need to get your crop sampled to keep it from going hot. But what there is a mandatory testing for all hemp crops grown in Ohio, where you contact the Ohio Department of Agriculture and give us your intended harvest date. So you have to do that at least 15 days prior to your harvest date, or your intended harvest date. If you think that you're going to harvest on September 16th, that gives you until September 1st to jump online and let us know which fields it is that you intend to harvest and which lots within that field. If you're planting multiple varieties in a field or in a growing location, each variety is required to be tested. When you submit that $500 annual fee for that growing location, that affords you testing one variety in that growing location. So this is another thing. If you're going to have multiple growing locations and you're going to do multiple varieties, to save you money, you might want to make sure you only have one variety in each growing location. Okay? Because for each growing location you have, we will come out and do one of the pre-harvest tests. So you had that 15-day window. You file that report on the 1st. The department at that point in time, we will send our inspectors out to collect that official sample. We are mandated to sample each and every lot of material that is grown in the state this year. And then once we collect our sample, you then have 15 days to go ahead and harvest. This is where you need to work with your processor to see what they want you to do with your harvesting. And in many instances, you will more than likely harvest that material before you get the results back. You need to maintain possession of that material though. Okay? We will get the results back to you. If it comes back where it is a hot crop, you do have the right to ask for a post-harvest resample. Okay? The post-harvest resample is $300. If you had more than one variety at that location where we're testing your growing location, the pre-harvest additional variety samples are $150 per sample. But if we're coming back in afterwards, it is something that we do offer that post-harvest sampling. You need to keep that lot that we sampled the first time after you harvest it all in its own area so that you're not commingling that variety with another variety. Because if you commingle that hot variety with a non-hot variety, then the entire crop is now hot. Okay? So you do need to make sure you keep that separation there. Uh-oh, what did I do here? So now we've got, maybe we come out and pull the sample on the 10th. You contacted us on the 1st. We've got 15 days to come out and sample it. If we come out and to sample that on the 10th, you then have to get that harvested within 15 days from the date that we collect our pre-harvest sample. And the reason being is because the longer it stays in the field, the higher the THC level could potentially go. And the federal regulations stipulate that you have to have that harvest done within 15 days of the date that the official sample was collected. Okay? Secondary pre-harvest sampling, so let's say you didn't get everything harvested within that 15 days. At that point in time, then you need to contact us because now what you didn't get harvested is going to be treated as a separate lot. And you will need to get it tested again in order to be able to legally sell that material to a processor. Yes?
Is there federal crop insurance available on this?
Is there federal crop insurance? Possibly. For the crop itself, not if it goes hot. And I think they've got some whole farm insurance policies that you may be eligible for if you were previously farming and have history on that farm of producing another crop. But that is something you definitely need to go talk to the Farm Service Agency on. Okay? There was a question right behind you too. Yeah.
How long will it take to get the results back?
How long will it take to get the results back? I'm hoping a lot less time than what it took Kentucky last year. Kentucky was 45 days. We have been informed that we believe we will have the samples back within 5 to 7 days. We have also contracted with 2 outside labs so that in the event we can't turn the samples around enough, because we have no idea how many fields we're going to have to sample. We went ahead and contracted with 2 labs so that we're going to have 3 labs that could be running those samples for us. And we're still hoping that it will be a rather quick turnaround on that. Okay? Yes, sir. Who's policing all of this? You're looking at him. You're looking at him. I mean, yeah, exactly. You know, one of the other questions we normally get is, hey, you know, how big's your program? How are you going to sample all these fields? The Director of Agriculture told me we've got over 400 employees with the Ohio Department of Agriculture. If I have to send out sampling supplies to all 400 of them, we will get the samples the field sampled, and we will get those analyses back, okay? So, you know, how many permanent people we're going to have, that's yet to be seen. But we do have other options here on getting the samples collected on time, okay? All right, so if you weren't in for the earlier presentation, Ohio is a total THC state. This is how the 2018 Farm Bill defines it, and this is how we're operating. If you're used to talking to growers in Kentucky especially, they are not a total THC state, and they are not growing this year under the 28 Farm Bill. They are still growing under the pilot program. So don't take everything you hear from Kentucky as gospel for Ohio, because we are different. Okay, we are in full compliance with the interim final rule with USDA. on hemp production. And you know, I heard a very good description of it. If you're not familiar with it, there's THC, there's THCA. And THCA is the one that converts over to THC with heat, and it converts over at 87.7%. So if you're wondering where this fancy number comes from, it's 87.7% of the THC has the potential to convert over to THC. Excuse me, of the THCA has the potential to convert over to the THC. So we add the two numbers together. It's the THCA from your certificate of analysis multiplied by 8.877 plus your THC. And we are using that measurement of uncertainty. Each and every lab is going to have its own different measurement of uncertainty. Our thing is it's somewhere in that 0.3%. A measurement of uncertainty is basically, you know, you have 5 labs test the same product, there's going to be a variance in there. And what is your variance for your particular lab? How accurate is your lab? Our lab, I have been told, is going to be extremely accurate. And we would expect to see that measurement of uncertainty at 0.07 or less. So in Ohio, what that would mean is if you get a test back from us that says it's 0.38, it is hot. Because if we're 0.07, you could go up to 0.37 before you were considered a hot crop. I would expect to see it more around the lines of 0.02, honestly. I mean, they're working on that to get a very good, you know, or very low measurement of uncertainty or high accuracy of analysis. Okay? Any questions on that? Yes, sir.
You need a retest. Do you get to pick what lab you get to send that to?
You do not get to pick the lab that you send it to. We will come out and pull the sample and send it to the lab of our choice. And if our lab is not backlogged, it will be our lab again. Because I would expect that our lab will probably be more accurate than the labs that we've contracted with. Okay? Good questions, though. Crop destruction. USDA did just come out with information on this. Because originally when this was posted, if your crop was hot, it had to go through a reverse distributor with the DEA, because it was treated as if it was straight marijuana right off the street. Okay? They are now allowing for different methods of destruction. You do have to file a crop destruction report with our agency and get permission to destruct it according to how you want to prior to destructing it. And we will be coming out to witness most of those crop destructions. They do allow tilling it under. They do allow mowboard plowing it and spreading manure. They do allow deep burial of the plant material itself, and they do allow burning it. Okay? So those are the methods that got out there right now. I would hope that through the years here we'll get additional methods allowed as well. Okay?
Question.
Yep.
So if you're destroying a crop, so you're recording acres planted with FSA, are they recording acres harvested? Or
That is, so there is a production report that is required with the Ohio Department of Agriculture for your harvest. I do not believe, and I need to check on this, that there is a production report required to be filed with FSA. Now, if you were in one of those insurance programs, though, if you're available for it based on your past history, then you might be required to file that with FSA as well. Okay? But that's not addressed through our rules and regulations or the interim final rule. Come on, yeah, I was going to say, you didn't see it in there, did you? Yeah, I didn't see it in there either, but so.
I think they just require planting.
Yeah, I think they just require planting. Okay? So one of the things that was brought up, the reason we're collecting all that information is because we are mandated by both the federal interim final rule and our rules to share that information with local law enforcement. Because any field that is not mapped and being grown under a license through our agency is considered marijuana, whether it's hemp or not. Okay? I wouldn't want to mess with the guys in the little black helicopter on this. All right? Transportation, there are no specific rules on that right now. It is a legal crop. We would highly recommend, though, when you're transporting this to your processor or transporting it to your farm location for storage and drying, that you've at least got a copy of your license with you that says you're allowed to be in possession of that material, and that if you're taking it to a destination, you've got some information on where the processor is that you're taking it. Okay? We are trying to work with with law enforcement to draft some additional rules for this, and that's just not here yet. Okay? How are we on time? Is the next presenter here?
The next presenter is here.
He is here. We'll get to this real quick here. This is the email address for our hemp program. This is my email address and my executive director's email address. If you have questions on this, please, folks, reach out, call us. The phone number there is 614-728-2101.